The sun shone brightly over Crestwood High as a sleek black limousine pulled up to the entrance. The engine hummed softly, and the door swung open to reveal Margot Sinclair, stepping out with the grace of a queen. Her designer clothes sparkled, catching the eyes of students milling about. Whispers of admiration and disdain floated through the air, creating a buzz around her arrival. "Look at her, as if she owns the place," one girl muttered, while another chimed in, "She probably does." Margot's smile was radiant as she waved to her friends, her confidence radiating like the sun. But amid the crowd, one girl sat alone. Lila Thompson, perched on a bench, clutched her simple lunch, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich wrapped in plain white paper. She took a small bite, her eyes downcast, feeling the weight of her loneliness. She could hear the laughter and excitement surrounding Margot, a stark contrast to her quiet, solitary world. As Margot approached with her group, she spotted Lila, and a mischievous grin spread across her face. "Hey, Lila," she called out, her voice dripping with mockery. "Nice lunch. Did you pack that yourself, or did you just find it in the trash?" The laughter that erupted from her friends cut through the air like a knife. Lila's cheeks flushed red, and she shrank deeper into her seat, her appetite vanishing as humiliation washed over her. "Come on, Margot," one of her friends snickered. "That's so mean." But the laughter continued, echoing in Lila's ears. Margot reveled in the moment, unaware of the hurt she was causing. To her, it was just a joke, a way to show her friends that she was the center of attention. Yet, each jibe drew a line between Margot and Lila, a growing tension that neither girl fully understood. Margot's laughter rang out, a soundtrack to her popularity, while Lila's silence screamed of her pain. The whispers of others faded into the background as Margot continued her teasing, unaware of the emotional toll it was taking on Lila. "Why don't you join us, Lila? We could use a little flavor." Margot laughed, her friends joining in, their voices blending into a cruel symphony. Lila looked up, her heart racing with a mix of anger and sadness. She wanted to shout back, to defend herself, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, she forced a smile, hoping to disappear into the background. As the days went by, the dynamic between Margot and Lila shifted, like the changing seasons. Margot thrived on the attention, her confidence soaring with each laugh she received. Each time she turned to Lila, the teasing became sharper, more deliberate. "You should really think about upgrading your lunch, Lila. You know, something a bit more glamorous," she said one day, her friends cackling in response. Lila's heart sank further, each remark a reminder of their different worlds. Lila began to retreat further into herself, choosing solitude over confrontation. In her mind, standing up to Margot felt impossible. She watched as Margot walked through the halls, surrounded by friends, her laughter ringing out like chimes in the wind. Margot was completely oblivious to the damage she was causing. The emotional scars she left behind were invisible to everyone, including herself. Each day, Lila packed her lunch with care, remembering the last time Margot had made fun of her. The peanut butter and jelly sandwich became a symbol of her life, a reminder of her struggles. She longed to be seen, to be understood, but the laughter of Margot and her friends drowned out her silent cries for help. As the school year progressed, the contrast between their lives deepened. Margot continued her reign as the popular queen, while Lila remained a shadow, fading further into the background. The tension between them simmered, waiting for a spark to ignite a change. But for now, the story of Margot and Lila was just beginning, filled with unspoken words and untapped emotions, waiting for a moment that could alter everything. Lila sat on a worn bench in the school cafeteria, her eyes fixed on the table in front of her. The noise around her was overwhelming, laughter and chatter echoing off the walls. She felt invisible, as if she were a ghost watching the living. Each day, she brought the same simple lunch, a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, the crusts cut off, and a small apple. It was all her mother could afford, and Lila tried to remind herself that it was enough. But today, the weight of her sadness felt heavier than usual. Her thoughts drifted to her father, who had passed away a year ago. The memory of his warm smile and gentle voice brought tears to her eyes. "I miss you, Dad," she whispered softly. The grief was a constant companion, and Lila struggled to cope. Her mother worked long hours at 2 jobs, leaving Lila alone to navigate the harsh world of school. Suddenly, Lila's solitude was shattered by the familiar sound of laughter. Margot Sinclair strode into the cafeteria, her presence commanding attention. She had a way of lighting up the room, but for Lila, it felt more like a storm cloud darkening her day. Margot's laughter rang out like a bell, and her friends followed her lead, their eyes darting around the room for someone to tease. "Look at Lila," Margot sneered, her voice dripping with mockery. "Still eating that sad little sandwich? Do you need a side of pity with that?" The table erupted in giggles. Lila's face flushed with humiliation. She wished she could disappear, to sink into the ground and vanish. "Leave her alone, Margot," one of her friends said weakly, but the words were lost in the torrent of laughter. Margot only smiled wider, her confidence growing with every chuckle from her peers. Lila felt the sting of their words deep in her heart, but she chose silence. Retaliating would only make things worse, she thought. Instead, she focused on her sandwich, taking small bites to occupy her mind. As the days passed, Margot's taunts became more frequent. Lila learned to brace herself for the onslaught. She would walk into the cafeteria, her stomach twisting in knots, hoping for a day without ridicule. But Margot's laughter echoed in her ears, a cruel reminder of her place in the school hierarchy. Lila often found herself sitting alone, watching the others socialize, their smiles a stark contrast to her own sadness. One afternoon, as she sat with her lunch, she felt a sudden rush of anger. "Why do I let her do this to me?" she thought, clenching her fists. Memories of her father flooded her mind. He had always taught her to stand up for herself. "You are stronger than you think," he had said. Lila could hear his voice as if he were sitting beside her. That day, something shifted within her. She looked around the cafeteria, taking in the laughter and the camaraderie that surrounded her. "I can't keep living like this," Lila whispered to herself. "I need to find a way to stand up to Margot." The thought both excited and terrified her. "Why do you always sit alone?" A voice suddenly broke through her thoughts. It was a girl from her math class, Sarah. "You should join us. We could use someone smart on our team for the project." Lila blinked, surprised by the offer. I don't know," she stammered. "Come on, it'll be fun," Sarah insisted, her smile warm and inviting. "You're really good at math. We need your help." Lila hesitated, torn between the desire to connect and the fear of being ridiculed. But as she looked into Sarah's encouraging eyes, she felt a flicker of hope. "Okay," she said softly, a small smile breaking through her hesitation. "I'll join you." As she walked towards Sarah and her friends, Lila felt a sense of determination rising within her. Perhaps this was the first step toward finding her voice. She glanced back at Margot, who was still laughing with her friends, unaware of the change slowly brewing in Lila's heart. Today, she would no longer let fear dictate her actions. The rain fell softly outside, tapping against the windows of the school as students bustled around in the cafeteria. Margot Sinclair sat with her friends, her usual confidence wrapped around her like a warm blanket. But today, something felt different. She picked at her food, her mind wandering as she glanced around the room. The laughter and chatter felt distant, almost muffled, like they were happening in another world. Meanwhile, Lila sat alone at her usual table, a small, worn backpack resting by her side. The noise of the cafeteria faded as she pulled out her lunch, a simple peanut butter and jelly sandwich wrapped in a crumpled napkin. It had become a ritual for her to eat in silence, avoiding the stares and whispers that followed her like shadows. Today, however, she felt a mix of sadness and resolve. She had poured her heart into a note, something she had hidden deep in her backpack, and it weighed heavily on her mind. As Margot's gaze drifted across the room, she noticed the way Lila sat, head down, her hands cradling the sandwich. A strange urge tugged at her, and she stood up, moving closer to Lila's table. What she did not know was that Lila's note had slipped out of the backpack and was lying just beside her lunch, waiting to be discovered. "Margot, where are you going?" one of her friends called out, raising an eyebrow. "Just checking something out," Margot replied, her voice light but her heart racing. She approached Lila's table, a mix of curiosity and mischief bubbling inside her. But as she leaned down, her eyes caught the edge of the note. She picked it up, her smile fading as she read the words written in Lila's neat handwriting. "Dear whoever finds this," it began. "I don't know if anyone will ever read this, but I need to say something. My life has been hard since my dad died. I miss him every day. My mom works so much to take care of us, and I feel alone. Sometimes I wish I could just be like everyone else and fit in." Margot felt a knot form in her stomach. She read on, her heart aching as Lila poured out her feelings on the page. The note spoke of resilience, of love, wrapped in the simple lunch she carried, and the hope that one day things would get better. Each word cut deeper than any joke Margot had ever made. "Why didn't I see this before?" Margot whispered to herself, her mind racing. The laughter she once thrived on felt hollow now. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing the truth that had been hidden from her all along. She glanced back at Lila, who was still focused on her lunch, unaware of the shift happening just a few feet away. Margot felt an internal struggle brewing within her. The weight of her actions pressed down like a heavy stone. How could she have been so blind? How could she have laughed when Lila was hurting? "Margot," one of her friends called, interrupting her thoughts. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." With a deep breath, Margot turned to them, her cheeks flushing. I think I need to talk to Lila." Her friends exchanged confused looks, but Margot didn't wait for their approval. She approached Lila's table, her heart pounding in her chest. "Hey Lila," Margot said, her voice trembling slightly. Lila looked up, surprise flickering in her eyes. "What do you want, Margot?" she asked, guarded. "I found something. Your note," Margot replied, holding it out. "I'm sorry, I had no idea what you were going through." Lila's expression softened, but uncertainty still lingered. "You don't have to pretend to care," she said quietly. "You've made fun of me for so long." "I know," Margot admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was wrong. I didn't see how much you were struggling. I was too caught up in my own world, and I'm really sorry for all the pain I caused you." The cafeteria seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them in their own bubble of vulnerability. Lila studied Margot's face, searching for sincerity. "You really mean that?" she asked, her voice softening. "Yes, I do," Margot replied earnestly. "I want to understand. I want to help. Can we start over?" Lila hesitated, the weight of Margot's words hanging in the air. For a moment, she considered the possibility of forgiveness. "I don't know," she finally said, her voice trembling. "It's hard to trust someone who has hurt you." "I get that," Margot said, her heart aching. "But I want to try. I want to be better. Please let me show you." The rain continued to fall outside, but for the first time that day, a small ray of hope flickered between them. Margot stood at the entrance of the cafeteria, her heart racing. Today was different. Today, she wanted to talk to Lila. The laughter of her friends echoed in her ears, but it felt distant. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the moment. Margot had thought a lot about what she had done, and now she felt a strange mix of fear and hope. As she approached Lila's table, she noticed the girl sitting quietly, scribbling something in her notebook. Lila's simple peanut butter and jelly sandwich sat untouched beside her. The sight tugged at Margot's heart. This was the girl she had teased so cruelly, and now Margot wanted to make things right. "Lila?" Margot's voice was soft, almost timid. Lila looked up, surprise flashing in her eyes. "What do you want, Margot?" Lila's tone was cautious, the hurt still raw from their previous encounters. I wanted to say I'm sorry," Margot stammered. The words felt heavy, but they were necessary. "I didn't understand how much my words could hurt you." The cafeteria fell silent, all eyes on them. Margot felt the tension in the air, a mix of disbelief and curiosity. Lila stared at her, taken aback by the unexpected apology. "Why now?" Lila asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Margot hesitated, searching for the right words. "I found your note. I didn't realize how much you were going through. I was wrong to make fun of you." Lila's gaze dropped to her sandwich, and for a moment, the silence stretched between them like an unbridgeable gap. Margot felt exposed, vulnerable. She had never apologized like this before. "I appreciate your apology," Lila finally said, her voice steady but low. "But it doesn't change what happened." Margot nodded, her heart sinking. She knew she couldn't erase the past, but she hoped to build something new. "I want to help you, if you'll let me. I can help with your schoolwork or anything else you need." Lila looked up, searching Margot's eyes for sincerity. "You really want to help me?" "Yes," Margot said earnestly. "I do. I know I messed up, but I want to change." Lila studied Margot for a long moment, then sighed. "Okay, if you really mean it, I could use some help with math. It's hard for me." A small smile broke through Margot's nervousness. "I'm not great at math, but I'll do my best." The tension between them began to dissolve, replaced by an unexpected sense of relief. Margot felt a weight lift off her shoulders. "Thank you for being open," Margot said. "I know it's not easy to trust me after everything." Lila nodded slowly. "It's going to take time. I have to be careful." "I understand," Margot replied. "I'll prove to you that I can be different." As they began to talk about math, Margot felt a spark of warmth in her chest. This was the start of something new, something she never expected. They exchanged ideas and solutions, laughter slowly creeping into their conversation. "Okay, so if you add these two numbers, what do you get?" Margot asked, pointing to Lila's notebook. That would be 9, Lila replied, a hint of a smile forming on her lips. "Exactly! You're getting it!" Margot exclaimed, her excitement bubbling over. Lila chuckled softly. "Maybe you are a good tutor after all." Just then, one of Margot's former friends walked by, eyeing the two girls with a smirk. "What's this? Margot helping the loser?" Margot felt a familiar wave of embarrassment wash over her, but this time, she stood her ground. "She's not a loser. She's really smart, and she deserves respect." Lila looked at Margot in surprise, a flicker of gratitude in her eyes. The moment felt significant, like a turning point in their relationship. As lunch continued, Margot and Lila shared stories, laughter, and even a few silly mistakes in math. Margot began to see Lila not as a target for her jokes, but as a person with a story, a depth she had never considered before. By the end of lunch, they had forged a tentative friendship, one that felt fragile, yet hopeful. Margot realized that sometimes apologies could lead to unexpected connections. And for Lila, it was a reminder that even in the toughest times, kindness could blossom in the most unlikely places. Margot and Lila sat together at a table in the school library, surrounded by colorful posters about their upcoming project. They were working on a fundraiser to help underprivileged children in their community. As they flipped through a pile of papers, Margot felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was different from anything she had done before. "I think we should have a bake sale. Everyone loves cookies," Margot suggested, tapping her pen on the table. Lila looked up from her notes, her eyes sparkling with ideas. "That sounds great. We could also do a car wash. People always need their cars cleaned, and it could bring in a lot of money." Margot nodded, appreciating Lila's enthusiasm. "Yes, we can set up a sign at school and advertise it on social media. I can ask my mom to help with the baking." As they brainstormed, Margot couldn't help but notice how Lila's strength shone through. Lila spoke with passion about their cause, her voice steady and filled with purpose. Margot felt inspired by her friend. "Lila, you're really amazing," Margot said, smiling. "I never thought I could feel this way about helping others." Lila paused, her hands resting on the table. "Thank you, Margot. I think it's important for us to do something good. It makes a difference, you know?" Margot agreed, feeling a warmth in her chest. Her mind drifted back to the days when she had bullied Lila. She felt a sharp pang of guilt, but quickly pushed it aside. They were friends now, and she wanted to focus on the present. As the weeks went by, their friendship blossomed. Margot began to see the world through Lila's eyes. She realized how much she had taken her privilege for granted. One afternoon, while they were working on posters for their project, Margot turned to Lila. "I never noticed how lucky I was before. I always had everything I wanted. But now, I want to help others too," Margot confessed, her voice soft. Lila smiled gently. "It's never too late to change, Margot. What matters is that you want to do better now." Margot felt a sense of relief wash over her. She was grateful to have Lila in her life, teaching her important lessons about kindness and humility. However, their growing friendship did not come without challenges. Margot's former friends began to notice her new bond with Lila. One day, as the two girls walked down the hallway, Margot's old friends approached them, their expressions a mix of confusion and disdain. "Why are you hanging out with her?" one of them sneered, crossing her arms. "You're not serious, are you?" Margot felt a wave of anxiety wash over her, but she stood her ground. "Lila is my friend. We're working on something important together." "Yeah, right. Why would you waste your time with someone like her?" Another friend chimed in, laughter bubbling in her voice. Lila looked down, her confidence wavering. Margot quickly placed a hand on her shoulder, feeling protective. "Stop it. Lila is strong and smart. We are doing something good, and I'm proud to be her friend." The hallway fell silent. Margot's old friends exchanged glances, surprised by her boldness. Finally, they rolled their eyes and walked away, leaving Margot and Lila standing together. "Thank you, Margot," Lila said softly, a hint of gratitude in her voice. "That meant a lot." "I won't let them bring you down. We're in this together," Margot replied, her heart swelling with determination. As their project progressed, Margot and Lila's bond deepened. They spent countless hours planning and preparing, sharing laughs and stories. Lila taught Margot about the struggles faced by many in their community, and Margot shared her dreams and aspirations. Through their collaboration, Margot found herself not only appreciating Lila's strength, but also discovering her own. She felt a sense of purpose, a desire to use her privilege for good. Each challenge they faced together brought them closer, solidifying a friendship that neither of them had expected. In that library, surrounded by their project materials, Margot and Lila knew they were creating something meaningful, not just for others, but for themselves as well. They were learning, growing, and transforming together. The sun shone brightly on the day of the big event. Margot and Lila stood together in the school auditorium, surrounded by colorful banners and smiling faces. Their project, a fundraiser for underprivileged children, had finally come to life. Margot felt a mix of excitement and nervousness as she looked at the crowd. They had worked hard, and today was the day to celebrate their success. "Can you believe we did it?" Lila asked, her eyes sparkling with joy. She wore a simple dress, which was a contrast to Margot's stylish outfit, but in that moment, it didn't matter. They were a team, and that was what counted. "We really did," Margot replied, her voice filled with pride. She felt a warmth in her chest, knowing that they had raised more funds than they had ever hoped for. "I never thought we could make such a difference." Lila smiled, her cheeks slightly flushed. "It shows what we can do when we work together. It's more than just the money. It's about helping others." As the teachers began to speak, Margot glanced at Lila. She could see the nervousness in her friend's eyes. "You'll do great," Margot encouraged. "Just remember, we're in this together." When it was their turn to speak, Margot took a deep breath. They walked to the front, hand in hand. The crowd quieted down, and Margot felt the weight of their stares. It was a moment she had never experienced before, standing up for something important. "Thank you everyone for being here today," Margot began, her voice steady. "Lila and I wanted to share our journey with you. We started this project to help kids who need support, and thanks to all of you, we raised a lot of money." The audience clapped, and Margot felt a surge of confidence. Lila stepped forward, her face glowing with determination. "This project taught me so much," she said. "It's not just about the money, it's about kindness and understanding. We all have stories, and it's important to listen to each other." Margot watched Lila speak, feeling proud of how far they had come. She knew Lila was sharing her heart, and it inspired everyone in the room. After Lila finished, Margot added, "We want to encourage everyone to be kind and inclusive. We can all make a difference, no matter how small." As they stepped down from the stage, Margot felt a sense of relief wash over her. They had done it. They had stood up for something important, and in doing so, they had strengthened their bond. After the event, students began to approach them, congratulating them on their success. Margot's former friends, who had once teased her, looked different now. They seemed unsure, perhaps even a little envious. One of them, Jenna, stepped forward. "You did a good job, Margot," she said, her voice lacking its usual edge. "Thanks, Jenna," Margot replied, a hint of surprise in her tone. "It was a team effort." Lila smiled at Margot, sensing the change in the atmosphere. "I think people are really starting to see how important this is," she whispered. "Yeah," Margot agreed, her heart swelling with hope. "It feels good to stand up for something that matters." As the day came to an end, Margot and Lila found a quiet corner of the schoolyard. They sat on a bench, taking a moment to reflect on everything that had happened. "I never thought I would feel this way," Margot admitted, looking at Lila. "I used to only care about being popular. Now, I realize how important it is to connect with others." Lila nodded, her expression thoughtful. "It's about understanding and supporting each other. I'm glad we became friends, Margot. You've changed so much." Margot smiled, feeling the warmth of Lila's words. "I couldn't have done it without you. You showed me what really matters." As they sat in silence, Margot thought about the lessons she had learned. Humility, kindness, and connection were now at the forefront of her mind. She understood that embracing vulnerability had opened her eyes to the world around her. "Let's keep this going," Margot suggested, her voice filled with determination. "We can do more projects together. We can make a real impact." Lila beamed, her smile brightening the moment. "I'd love that, Margot. Together we can help even more people." And as they sat there, two friends united by purpose, the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over their journey ahead. Share this story if you believe that kindness and collaboration can truly make a difference in the world. Leave a comment about a time when you came together with friends to support a cause, and subscribe for more inspiring stories like this one.